Actually, Douglas,
Job
ask
is
me to
all
get in
lined
this.
up.
Can I sign you on to that?
Will the Senate please come to order?
I'm a Broncos fan, so thank you.
We'll take a moment of silence in lieu of a devotional. Thank you. Are there any announcements? Seeing none. We have a Senate bill for introduction, S-157, introduced by Senator Douglas and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
S-157, an act relating to recovery residence certification.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill, and it is referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare. Orders of the day. Oh, we don't have orders of the day. No orders of the day. Senator from Chittenden.
With that, Mr. President, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take off the notice calendar S-124, an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects, H-472, an act relating to professions and occupations regulated by the Office of Professional Regulation, S-12, an act relating to sealing criminal history records, and S-26, an act relating to healthcare payment and delivery system reform.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take up off the notice calendar S-124, H-472, S-12, and S-126 for immediate action. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries. S-124 was passed by the House with proposal of amendment. The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment? I do not know who is speaking on this. Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met as a joint committee today with our counterparts, Senate Natural Resources, and we had a very productive meeting. I am going to ask that the presenter of the bill, the senator from Rutland, the senior senator from Rutland, just talk about a few of the changes, and I think that there might be some additional comments from a couple chairs after that. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield to the senior senator of Tyrrell.
Senator from Essex yields to the senior senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, all. We did meet, as the chair indicated, with Senate Natural Resources earlier today. There are probably three main changes, and I'll let the chair of the Senate Natural Resources Committee talk about the other two. But one of them, which caused a little bit of concern with some members of the Senate Agriculture Committee, has to do with section 1352 of the bill under the powers of the secretary. When it left this chamber, the wording was that the Clean Water Act would be administered by the Secretary of Natural Resources, and it would be consistent with an equivalent to the Federal Clean Water Act. When it came back from the House, those words were changed to at least as stringent as the Federal Clean Water Act. So in essence, what that does is change what is now the federal requirement from the floor to the ceiling, or vice versa. Right now, it's the ceiling, and the Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources has to follow that. This would enable the Secretary of Natural Resources further powers to change that if the Secretary so chose. And there was some concern. I will just say that we had sort of a straw poll from members of the Senate Agriculture Committee on whether to concur with the proposal of amendment from the House. And I've used the word reluctantly in this chamber the last couple of days a few times. And I think I can summarize that the majority of the committee reluctantly does favor concurrence here. The problem is, if we don't, that the bill will probably not get to the finish line this year, and that would be even a worse conclusion and situation. So I'll just let it go at that, and I will yield to the senator from Washington, the chair of the Natural Resources.
Senator from Rutland yields to the senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. So a couple other changes that came up in this, the House proposals of amendment. One was about the application of manure in an emergency situation, and we heard from the Secretary of, or the Commissioner of Agriculture, that the language that the House included here was sort of the original intent, and so that was fine with him. And then the other that is worth mentioning is on page 3203, which is a reference to the Federal Clean Water Act. That is very similar to language that we saw in H 397 about references to federal law and ensuring that we in Vermont have consistency over time with our rules, even in the case that the federal rules start to change or shift. So similar to that language that you saw in H 397, this pegs the references to the Clean Water Act to whatever they were in statute as of January 1st of 2025 of this year. And so just to follow up on that, the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Committee did take a straw poll, and we were supportive of concurrence on a vote of 401. And I will yield back to the senator from, or the chair of Ag.
Senator from Washington yields to the senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've heard me talk about the cooperation amongst committees that historically haven't had a lot of cooperation. And I hope that that is a new way of how we can do business within the Senate. Of all things, first, we are the Senate, and we should really always try to have our positions be the one that legislates in this building. I feel strongly about that. This bill started out kind of rough with the senior senator of Addison bringing forth a different bill. Some of the language that was in that bill was very, very important to our farmers, and so we proposed it in Senate Agriculture to just take a laser-focused view at what was going to benefit our farmers, knowing full well that if we could do that, that we could probably pass this bill amongst maybe some angst amongst maybe the pro tem and the chair of Senate Natural. But we stuck to our word. We did with what we did. And as the senior senator of Rutland said, yeah, there's some stuff in this bill that maybe that we didn't like at the end of the day. But if we're going to be true to our word as far as what our mission was, which was to stay focused on what was best for farmers and be a landing page of other interests to be allowed to come into this bill, then, well, you got to stick to your word. We stuck to our word. We got a good bill passed. I supported it and very proud of the way that a lot of different people work together. And at the end of the day, not 100% happy, but knowing that the outcome of this was good legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Washington.
Thank you. I just also want to echo my appreciation to the Senate Agriculture Committee and the chair for their cooperation on this. Thanks.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And we have concurred with the House proposal of amendment on S-124. The House has considered Senate proposal of amendment to H-472 and has concurred therein with further proposal of amendment. The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy to say there are 4 instances of amendment on what is known as the OPR bill, none of which are controversial. So this should be a fairly simple and easy process to go through. The first instance of amendment, and you can follow along on page 3204 of today's calendar, it substitutes or strikes out the word exempt and inserts in lieu thereof classified. This has to do with the executive officer of the Rutland mental health, or the mental health provision in the bill. We considered it pretty much a technical corrections. The Office of Professional Regulation intended for it to be classified, but for some reason it went in the bill as exempt. So it is just flipping back to what they originally intended. The second instance of amendment, and this is unfortunate in many ways, but it strikes out sections 14 through 18 of the bill, which has to do with the early childhood education provisions. Those provisions were added by the Senate Government Operations Committee after the bill came over to us, and we spent considerable time and energy and took great testimony about this, but the appropriations for it were eliminated. So without the appropriations, there's no way for it to be implemented, and we decided to accept this striking out, so there is no more childhood education provision in the bill. We will take this up probably next year. I've been told that the other chamber has indicated an interest in taking it up first next year. So we'll wait and see, but the original bill is still on the wall in Senate Government Operations. So it will be back one way or another, I assume. The third instance of amendments just redoes the numbering by striking out the newly renumbered section 15, effective dates, et cetera, et cetera. And then the fourth one adds a new section, on or before December 1st, 2025, Secretary of State shall submit to the House Committees on Energy and Digital Infrastructure, both Government Operations Committees, the Senate Finance Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, and the Institution Committee, a written report detailing the revenues generated from optional services through sales of data as authorized pursuant to Title III. Again, we didn't consider that a substantive change. So by a straw vote, we voted unanimously to concur with the House proposal amendment on H472. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the reporter of the bill, I just wanted to echo the sentiments from our chair and also lift up, I think this is the last bill you're going to be seeing from Senate Government Operations this session. And I just wanted to say thank you to our chair, who this was his not first year in Senate Government Operations, but his first year as our chair. And it was a very good experience. And we are grateful for his work and steering the ship. So that's all I want to say.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate concur in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate has concurred in the House proposal of amendment to the Senate proposal of amendment on H472. We now have S12, an act relating to sealing criminal history records. The Committee of Conference has submitted the report as found in today's calendar, and the question is, shall the Senate accept and adopt the report of the Committee of Conference? Senator from Windham.
Mr. President, senators may remember S12, the sealing and expungement bill, from earlier in the session as a major component of the governor's public safety omnibus bill. The bill has returned from conference with a positive report after we've reached compromises on several areas of disagreement. I'm also happy to report that we were largely able to maintain the Senate's position. To start, there are a few new provisions from the other body which we agreed to. First, an amendment to section 7602, which requires an order of sealing to be sent to all Vermont entities provided by the petitioner and all entities required to receive notice pursuant to section 7607, subsection A of that title. This was requested by the Secretary of State. Second, an amendment to section 7606 and 7607. and this is in Title 13, which requires state entities that inquire about a person's criminal history record to inform them that they do not need to disclose expunged records. Third, an amendment to Section 7611 requires the Secretary of Administration and the judiciary to notify all persons to whom this is applicable of their right not to disclose records. So the amendments that I just described help to address two of the dilemmas we've previously encountered. The first involves lessening the burden on the petitioner when it comes to sealing records where applicable. And the second involves making sure the petitioner is aware, fully aware, of the effect of sealing or expungement on their record when inquiries are made of them. The next change to 7607 has historically been the biggest piece of contention between the chambers when it comes to the issue of privacy, access, usage, and disclosure of sealed records. And it's an area where we had to deal with a lot of semantics. The Senate has had a tendency to focus heavily on creating judicial review and enhancing privacy when it comes to the access, usage, and disclosure of sealed records. The other body has focused heavily on creating policy that is based on operational and real-world usefulness. The committee conference reached a compromise that incorporates the Senate position while also creating a system that makes sense for real-world application. So under the current system, a criminal justice agency can access, use, and disclose sealed records without limitation for any criminal justice purpose. There's also no statewide consistency, aside from what's in law, for individual agencies regarding their internal rules for these sealed records. So since we were shifting to a one-track system, the Senate's position was to require an order from the court saying an agency can access and use sealed records in their possession. The compromise we came to was to allow access exclusively for criminal justice purposes, but usage or disclosure to another non-criminal justice entity or for litigation would require an order from the court. Additionally, the conference committee agreed to the creation of a statewide policy that will govern the access and use of sealed records in order to create statewide consistency. The policy will determine what types of records may be accessed and used and require a record-keeping system that logs access to sealed records. I just want to provide a hypothetical that may clarify the differences between access, usage, and disclosure. So let's say there's a file cabinet full of sealed records in a police department. The police department is investigating a complex case and wants to know if there might be any information in these old sealed records that could be useful. So information such as past associates, past residences, MO, or even exculpatory evidence. Under current law, an officer can look at the record to see if it's even relevant. Under the Senate's previous proposal, an officer would need to get a court order to just look at the same file they've had in their possession for years to determine if it's relevant or useful in any way. Under the compromise we've reached, an officer can look to see if it's relevant, but if it's going to be used to develop or litigate a criminal case, permission from the court will be required. Additionally, if the officer wants to disclose those same sealed records to non-criminal justice entities, it can only be done for criminal justice purposes, and a court order is required, along with a notice that improper usage of sealed records can result in a new $1,000 fine. Additionally, the Senate position for defense attorneys and their clients remains intact. Defenders and their clients are able to use their sealed records or the sealed records of another party for the purposes of litigation. On another topic, I also want to mention the deferred sentences. The other body's proposal was to eliminate expungement for deferred sentences for listed offenses. The Senate version of the bill did not incorporate that provision. Deferred sentences are a high-risk, high-reward tool for both defenders and prosecutors, and the conference committee agreed that we would leave deferred sentences unchanged. It's been a long road to get to this point, but I'm glad that we finally reached it. And I'll just briefly mention before I wrap this up that when I first started serving in the other body and we were discussing expungement, I was strongly supportive of a system in which records were completely destroyed and their existence denied in all regards. Over the years, I've come to change my perspective, and as I've previously stated, at least to me, it feels unusual to have a system in which the government can punish its own people, then completely destroy the records, and then deny that anything ever happened. So to my knowledge, we're the only state that has that type of an expungement system. And on the other hand, there is great value in the opportunity for individuals who've maintained a clean record and have had their convictions sealed to be able to pursue employment or apply for housing or student loans or many of the other benefits afforded to people who have clean records. The way this policy has been crafted, in my opinion, firmly establishes the ability for government accountability and record retention, usage of relevant sealed records for legitimate criminal justice purposes, and the ability for people to have an unblemished record after a certain number of years so they can return to leading a positive life. So with all that being said, I would ask for the Senate support.
The question is, shall the Senate accept and adopt the report of the Committee of Conference? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the Senate has accepted and adopted the report of the Committee of Conference on S12. We now have S126, an act relating to healthcare payment and delivery system reform. The Committee of Conference has submitted the report as found in today's calendar. The question is, shall the Senate accept and adopt the report of the Committee of Conference? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee of Conference has met and agreed to propose the results that you see in the calendar on page 3228. So, Mr. President, basically the provisions that the Senate agreed to and passed unanimously to the other chamber were agreed upon. There are some changes that were made during their discussion, and then we agreed to some changes during the conference process. As you recall, the purpose of this bill is to transform functional and structural changes to Vermont's healthcare system, with particular regard to financing. In Section 2 of the bill adds duties to the Green Mountain Care Board, one of which is to establish both reference-based pricing and global budgeting beginning in 27 through 2030. We added language that said if resources are available, particularly with respect to global budgeting. Section 3 allows for the Green Mountain Care Board to make determinations regarding reference-based pricing. When we talked in here, we talked about using Medicare as the guideline for establishing the reference-based pricing. The House, and we agreed to adding another benchmark as appropriate. Then it also allows the Green Mountain Care Board to implement reference-based pricing out in consultation with the Agency of Human Services for services delivered outside the hospital, such as primary care services. The Section 3A is a definition of hospital network that is consistent with other places where we have defined hospital network. Section 4, hospital budget review. This is consistent with what we did in this chamber to allow some consistency around the submission of budget information to the board so that all hospitals will have standardized reporting. Section 5 relates to hospital budget review, requiring the Green Mountain Care Board to consider the statewide healthcare delivery strategic plan, which is defined later in the bill as part of that budgeting process. That also includes many of the things that we had, including consideration of salaries within the budget for executive and clinical leadership, variable incentive plans, and so on. Consider the ratio of the hospital's administrative employees to direct care employees. Requires individual budgets established by the Green Mountain Care Board to be consistent with the strategic plan that I indicated earlier, is defined later in the bill. Then in Section 6, hospital networks, the concern about Green Mountain Care Board's role in regulating networks where hospitals may be in the state of Vermont as well as in other states. The language here that is agreed to authorizes the board to recommend any action, to recommend, I think we said implement in the Senate, and the House has said, has added, and we agreed to recommend action it deems necessary to correct any aspect of the network or its financial operations that are inconsistent with the principles for healthcare reform or the statewide healthcare delivery plan once it's established. Section 7 regarding healthcare contracts and opening up those contracts to scrutiny is the same as we passed from this chamber. Section 8 is the statewide healthcare delivery strategic plan. The House added the word strategic into the plan. And basically the requirements and the work within that plan to develop a statewide healthcare plan are pretty much the same as they were as it left the Senate. The date for the plan is January 2028, and then updated plans every year, every 3 years, and that would begin in December 2030. The House would like to have it be on December 1st, 2030, rather than moving into 2031. And we agreed to that. Then the Healthcare Delivery Advisory Committee, which we included as working to help develop the strategic plan, was modified somewhat in the other chamber. The number of members on that committee is now 18. I think we had 14 or 15 we had. They added small businesses and advanced practice nurses to the membership. Then one of the largest, I think, change that was made in the other chamber was the addition of the Vermont Steering Committee for Comprehensive Primary Health Care. One of the current concerns that we have in this state is with regard to ensuring that there's primary care in the state and that we have primary care workforce in the state. The folks who are most concerned about that asked for some attention to primary care in the bill, and we all agree that this is important. So this creates a steering committee for comprehensive primary health care. It's a membership of 16 individuals, and it will direct the steering committee to assess primary care needs in Vermont, make recommendations on workforce recruitment and retention, propose sustainable primary care funding models, identify ways to increase access to primary care and reduce administrative burdens, recommend ways to measure quality, provide input on comprehensive primary health care for the statewide healthcare delivery strategic plan, and consult on reference-based pricing for primary care, and offer additional recommendations and guidance on primary care. This is really important. We currently have, the Green Mountain Care Board has an advisory committee on primary care. We have the Blueprint executive team with the Vermont Medical Society has a group that looks at primary care. This will put in place a group that focuses on primary care in the ways that I've just mentioned in Section 9A of the bill. Section 10 of the bill, basically the integration of healthcare data is basically based on what we passed out of the Senate. It does talk about a unified health data space. The importance of, and the language that is here was something that was agreed to not just with the other members of the conference committee, but also by the Agency of Human Services, the Green Mountain Care Board, and the Healthcare Advocate. The importance of this unified data space is to begin to look at the interoperability of providing clinical data between and among providers, and then also making clinical data available to patients in a timely way. Section 11, basically the same as has left this body, allowing for the sharing of information from the board to the Agency of Human Services or the Department of Financial Regulation. Then, Mr. President, the next sections are pretty much new by the coming to us from the House. and it's a series of updates. We had quite a discussion about the word reports. There was concern that we were going to be burdening our Agency of Human Services and/or our Green Mountain Care Board and others with report after report after report, rather than having them get the work done, as we said, boots on the ground. So what I'm talking about next are a series of updates that will come to various, to the legislature in different ways. So Section 11A is an update on healthcare spending reductions. So the Agency of Human Services is going to facilitate collaboration and coordination among healthcare providers to respond to the urgent financial pressures and identify opportunities to increase efficiency, improve quality, reduce prescription drug spending, and increase access to essential services while reducing hospital spending by not less than 2.5% for hospital fiscal year 2026. This coincides with some of the work that we were talking about yesterday, but it does give the AHS a job to do in collaborating and coordinating with healthcare providers. Section 11B is healthcare system transformation reporting, updating regarding Act 167. Act 167 is our transformation bill. Currently, the AHS is working with hospitals for to move toward a new direction. Those updates are new in Section 11B. 11C is two things, really. It directs the Agency of Human Services to award incentive grants to hospitals to encourage them to actively participate in transformation efforts, including reducing hospital costs and expanding access through telehealth. So we have what is known as an HIT fund, Health Information Technology Fund, and this bill appropriates $2 million from that fund for the purposes of providing grants to hospitals. It's a terrific incentive to increase interoperability and telehealth moving forward. Section 11D is asked the Department of Financial Regulation to provide a report on domestic health insurer sustainability. So the DFR will provide a report to the Health Reform Oversight Committee by November 1st of this year for preserving the sustainability of domestic insurers in Vermont. That's Blue Cross and Blue Shield, as we know. Then Section 12 is the same as what we had for looking at what is left of the ACO and what we might benefit from the ACO. Continuing on, there's a Green Mountain Care Board is asked in Section 14 for a report on the implementation of reference-based pricing and other care cost and quality work that is going on as a result of this particular bill. Section 15 it looks at is a report from AHS. It's similar to what we had in our underlying bill, I believe. And then Section 16 is the Green Mountain Care Board's annual report, include reference-based pricing and global hospital budget and the effects on healthcare access, quality, and cost. Sections 17 and 18 are the appropriations sections where, consistent with what we had in our bill, adding funding for and positions in the Green Mountain Care Board, and then the reference to the HIT funding for the hospital grants that I mentioned earlier in sections 11A and 11C. Contracts for the completion of the work for the interoperability and the unified data space. Then section 19 are the effective dates. The bill will take effect on passage. Section 16, the annual report, will take place beginning July 26. And section 17 and 18, the appropriations sections, will take place on July 1st, 2025. That is a report from your committee of conference, and remembering that this, when we started this bill in January, Mr. President, we were it was a long haul to get to the end of the road, and we're pleased to see that we've come to agreement with the other chamber and asked for the Senate to support the bill, the conference committee report. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the Senate accept and adopt the report of the Committee of Conference? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Orleans.
Thank you, Mr. President. Speaking very specifically to one portion of the bill or the report, and that's about electronic medical records and interoperability. I just want to speak to how important that is for our hospitals. I know of one hospital that's lost millions of dollars due to inefficient electronic medical records. And I think that this is a good step in helping us move towards a statewide universal electronic medical records, which very much so will increase efficiencies in our hospitals and should save hospitals money. Thank you.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may interrogate the reporter.
The reporter is interrogated.
For S126. Thank you, Mr. President. So it's been a year or so since I've had the opportunity to gain insight from the Health and Welfare Committee. And I'm curious if you could remind the Senator what the Medicare reimbursement rate is in comparison to the actual cost of medical attention.
The Medicare reimbursement rates are variable depending on what code we're talking about. So overall, Medicare has a better rate than Medicaid. I want a more specific answer and find
Just
out.
Mr. President, maybe possibly just a generic comparison of Medicare reimbursement rates to actual cost of medical attention would be appropriate.
I cannot tell you what it is related to actual costs. What the information that we hear from hospitals and providers is that they can survive on Medicare, and certainly better than they can survive for other lower payments, when using Medicare as a standard for reference-based pricing. And I think that might be what you're thinking about. Am I accurate or inaccurate, Mr. President?
Mr. President, that's correct.
So ordinarily, when we think about reference-based pricing, we would think about, 250 to 300% of Medicare as being perhaps an acceptable reimbursement rate. It might be higher for certain services. It might be probably not too much lower for other services. Today, there's huge variability in hospitals that do use reference-based pricing, and I talked about that when I presented the bill, and I'm happy to present more information if that is of interest.
I thank the reporter and thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate accept and adopt the report of the Committee on Conference? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have adopted and accepted the report of the Committee of Conference on S-126. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take up a resolution, SR 15, and take that up for immediate action.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to take up SR 15 for immediate action. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Second reading. Yep. Morgan's okay. We have SR 15 for second reading. Please listen to the second reading.
SR 15, Senate resolution urging that all state agencies, departments, and offices protect the civil rights, medical confidentiality, and all aspects of personal privacy of Vermonters who have been diagnosed with autism in light of the Secretary of U.S. Health and Human Services recently announced plans to establish an autism research database and other databases related to autism.
I understand this is hot off the press. It was reported favorably by the Committee on Health and Welfare, and I would recognize the senator from Chittenden Southeast for the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. This proposal, this resolution was brought to your Senate Health and Welfare Committee by the senator from Chittenden Central, Senator Vyhovsky. First, just simply to say that the Senate Health and Welfare Committee very much appreciates the work that went into developing this, and we have in the past endorsed bills. I'm not sure we've ever endorsed a resolution on relating to autism. But rather than my going through this from the perspective of the committee, I'd like to yield my comments to the senator from Chittenden Central, Senator Vyhovsky, who introduced this in the first place. Thank you.
Senator from Chittenden Southeast yields to the senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank the Health and Welfare Committee for taking this up quickly and moving it quickly. And I know many members of my community and the state of Vermont who work with individuals who have autism or they themselves have autism. Thank you as well. This resolution affirms our commitment to protecting the private health information and the civil rights of individuals who have autism, and affirms that autism is a neurodivergence that brings diversity and vibrance to our communities and not a disease or an epidemic. It was members of our community who have autism or work with individuals with autism that came to me with fear that their private health information may be shared without their permission, and that they were being targeted, and asked me to sponsor a resolution. In conversation, I reminded them that a resolution does not have the power of law, but it is an affirmation, and they felt that it was incredibly important that the Vermont Senate stand in solidarity and in support of these vital members of our community. And so what this resolution does is it reaffirms our full commitment to upholding HIPAA and upholding the protecting the private information of these individuals, while also acknowledging the incredible vibrancy they bring to our communities through their participation in our economy, our schools, and every aspect of our community. This resolution was based on an executive order that was put forward by the governor of Illinois that affirmed similar protections. It does not offer protections that don't exist. It simply asks that all of our departments and agencies uphold the current law to protect their information. Now, I think research and understanding is important, and that it must be voluntary, which is why we are standing to affirm people's information. This resolution acknowledges that the original registry that was put forward has been sort of stepped back from, and we're now talking about a research database, but that any information provided to it should be voluntary. The resolution urges all of our state agencies, departments, and offices to do everything in their power to protect the civil rights, medical confidentiality, and all aspects of personal privacy of Vermonters who have been diagnosed with autism. And this resolution will be sent to the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, the Director of the National Institute of Health, the Vermont Congressional Delegation, the Vermont Secretary of Human Services, the Vermont Human Rights Commission, and the governor. And I did speak to one of the individuals who asked me to sponsor this resolution when I submitted it, and they expressed it being one of the first bits of good and hopeful news they had heard in a while. So I ask that the Senate support this resolution and reaffirm our commitment and appreciation for all of our Vermonters who have been diagnosed with autism. Thank you, Mr. President.
So the question is, shall the resolution be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of SR 15. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Given that this resolution has been treated as a bill, I would ask that the Senate suspend its rules in order to move SR 15 through all remaining stages of passage.
Senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to put SR 15 through all remaining stages of passage. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Let's see, so, okay, SR 15, we have SR 15 for third reading. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Listen to the third reading.
SR 15, Senate resolution urging that all state agencies, departments, and offices protect the civil rights, medical confidentiality, and all aspects of personal privacy of Vermonters who have been diagnosed with autism in light of the Secretary of U.S. Health and Human Services recently announced plans to establish an autism research database and other databases related to autism.
Now, you've heard the third reading. The question is, shall the resolution pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have passed SR 15. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message our actions taken on S-122, an act relating to economic and workforce development, and H-472, an act relating to professions and occupations regulated by the Office of Professional Regulation, to the House forthwith.
The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message our actions on S-122 and H-472 to the House forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Senator from Chittenden.
At this time, Mr. President, I would move that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message to the governor our actions taken on S-12, an act relating to sealing criminal history records, S-124, an act relating to miscellaneous agricultural subjects, and S-126, an act relating to healthcare payment and delivery system. That would be messaged to the governor forthwith.
The senator from Chittenden moves that the Senate suspend its rules in order to message our actions on S-12, S-124, and S-126 to the governor forthwith. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. So senators will realize that everything on the calendar is gone. So we have a perfectly clean calendar for about an hour and a half, at which time the House looks to send us quite a long list of things to clean up our final work. So I will be moving in a moment to adjourn until 2 p.m. What I would ask is that all senators understand that today may be our last day. It is still possible that that could work. If it does, it will be because we stay here late tonight. And by late, I mean into the wee hours. If that doesn't work, we may be asked to come back tomorrow. So I would ask that everybody continue to keep your calendars clear and be patient as we work with the other chamber to close out the remaining conference committees and clean up the final bills that are just coming to us at the tail end of the process. So remaining kind of available and around in the State House is always a good idea. Sometimes we gavel in and gavel out. So we're all cooperating to try to get to the quickest possible adjournment. With that said, Mr. President, pending announcements, I would move the Senate stand in adjournment until 2 p.m. And if I might make the first announcement, Megan has asked me to ask you to clean off your desks in your committee rooms with your papers, put whatever you don't need back in files, otherwise recycle. The thing they are most concerned about is food, because I won't name names, but we used to have a senator who secreted food in his desk, and it turned into an infestation, and we never want that to happen again. So if senators could do some housekeeping in their committee rooms, it would be much appreciated by your committee staff. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 2 p.m. this afternoon. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in adjournment until 2 p.m. this afternoon.